Hey, everybody, welcome to the Jay Young Show. I'm excited today to have a good guest. Hey, before we talk about the guest, I want to talk about, the book, Upside of Oil and Gas Investing, Jordan. I know that we talked about my great co-host, Jordan Soto. Jordan, thank you for being here today. Appreciate you being here. We talked about this in our last episode. I want to mention it one more time. Our book, The Upside of Oil and Gas Investing, just got the gold star. We got the gold Amazon star, bestseller, Upside of Oil and Gas Investing. Go online. It's on iTunes, iPad, iBook, whatever that Apple book thing. It's on all of them, I think. It's on anything. Anyway, just Google Upside Oil and Gas Investing. We just got the gold star. I'm really excited about that. Thanks, Laura, in our office for helping that get to the next level. Appreciate that. But also, King Operating is end of the year push. They're sponsoring. King Operating is sponsoring the show, which they always have. We have a great fund that we're coming out with really soon, and we look to monthly income for investors, tax benefits, while we also multiple on investment dollars. So we're coming out with a new fund real soon. So go on kingoperating.com to listen to that. You can also get a copy of the book. So excited about that. Jordan, thanks for being here today. But our guest today is a B2B industrial sector. Brandy, you're going to have to help me with your last name if you don't mind.
So oven like a stove, and then seva. So Obvintseva.
Obvintseva.
Yes, it's a tough name for a Texan girl, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, it's tough for a redneck like me. Sorry, but I hope I'm not the first person that's ever asked you to. Yeah, okay, good.
No,
but you got 25 years of experience. 25 years experience with corporate strategy, brand strategy. So branding, what does all that mean? Kind of give us an idea of what that means. You've been very successful in it, and just kind of tell us where did it start?
So it actually started, I got interested in brand strategy in the late 90s. I had the opportunity to watch Texaco Natural Gas move forward in a very large branding campaign. They brought Paul Newman in, they did the deal, it was a big deal, but they did not provide the executors with the tools necessary to create the resonance that was appropriate for this $40 million investment that they made. And so I was in school at the time, and I decided to write my thesis on global brand strategy and how to appropriately manage a brand across the world. And so it was super fun. And then fast forward a few years, I got a chance to work with a gentleman named Q Malandrino, who is my mentor to this day. And he really taught me a different level of depth about what brand strategy is. And essentially, it's not really about control. It's about management. It's about trying to influence the things that you can influence to deliver a certain resonance in the hearts and minds of the people that care about your company. There are always extenuating factors, macroeconomics, macro variables that can shift the perception of your brand. But if you know what you want people to think about, and you know where they are, both in terms of the mediums, but also in terms of their hearts, then you can make very important inroads in the management of those perceptions. Can you control it 100%? Absolutely not. Do you have a brand even if you do nothing about it? Absolutely. But we develop the tools and processes and theories and platforms to make sure that you're doing the absolute best you can to ensure that the way that your company should be thought about is the way that it is thought about.
Well, true. Thinking about that, just thinking about like You Got Milk, the
Yes.
Nike brand, the Eat More Chicken. I had the guy on here. It's been several years, I think during COVID, but I had him on here, the guy that helped the You Got Milk or something logo.
Oh,
But
they're legendary. That's so
yeah,
cool.
that is
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
I need to go back in. That was episode a long time ago. But anyway, I'll need to look at that. But that's what you do. That's kind of what your thought process is, and helping companies like the Jay Young Show or Jordan Soto or King Operating build a brand, and how to do that. Is that what you're known for?
So what we would do out of all three of those phenomenal entities, we would actually we would most likely support, I mean, I'll talk to Jordan all day long about her fabulous brand, no problem. And I'm looking forward to learning more about this podcast. But your operating entity would probably fit our portfolio most appropriately. We specialize in supporting industrial business to business companies that maybe they do amazing, phenomenal work, but it's not the most straightforward thing to explain necessarily. We like to make it as easy as possible so that you can tell your grandma what you do, and she's
Right.
gonna love it. And then she's going to tell her friends, and then her friend's grandson is an investment banker, and then all of a sudden we're off to the races. So we like to, give people the tools that they need to create ambassadors in the B2B space.
So when you're looking at the branding, which I mean, we've run into each other multiple times in various industries, whether it's the space industry or the energy industry. We ran into each other at the neighbors event with Honeywell and a geothermal project, I believe it was. Maybe it was a different one.
GA drilling. Yes, yes, yes.
And so, when I'm looking at these companies that you have worked in that space with, I've noticed that a lot of these industries are male dominated industries. And so when you're looking at this as a female entrepreneur who has built your company from the ground up, and then you're dabbling in these spaces of male dominated industries, what is that one? How does that feel as an entrepreneur, a female entrepreneur? And then two, how do you navigate those conversations so that you're taken seriously and you have that seat at the table?
So, a couple of things. First of all, I have always been in male dominated industries,
Mm.
and I've always played a role that traditionally right minded or not right minded has been managed by women. So, a lot of communications management, CMO work is done by women. So, I always like to make sure that I point out that I have not had the challenges, and I have not had I have not had to do the hard, gritty, amazing, powerful work that some of these women engineers on oil and gas platforms, and women technologists and things like that have had to do. And I just admire them so very, very much, because it has, in the 25 years of time that I've been in this industry, it has shifted, and I cannot even imagine what
Mm.
it would have been like, 30 years ago, to be a woman in the middle of nowhere in the North Sea, the only woman, and just sitting. And they have, I think, not only created, like, they've worked so hard to build and help people understand. They've carried the flag of the benefits of diversity and for our industry, and have done it with so much power and so much grace. And I acknowledge them so much. In terms of me getting a seat at the table, when I was very young, I think about this now. When I was very young, I just was a mess, and I just would bulldoze my way into something. Honestly, I always believed, and I still believe, that the earlier that a communication professional can sit at the table and at the leadership side of things, so that we can support and shape culture, but also at the technological development side of things. So when, as an example, if you're a chemist and you're at a major company that develops oil-filled chemistry, the moment a new molecule is a sparkle in your eye, bring your communications professional in, and we can help shape the narrative before it becomes a thing, because then we can help it become, an, we can help it become real faster.
Mhm.
So I just kind of bulldozed my way in, and there were things that I learned along the way that I think maybe I would have handled differently, but I'm also really grateful that I did it and had the chance to internalize some of those lessons.
Well, now Jay and I are on the edge of our seats. We're like, wait, what is the thing? What happened there? What was
Oh,
what
yeah, I'm just so one thing I will say, one thing that we do that's kind of different is we put culture sort of at the heart of brand, and um, as part of that, I help people with a methodology that is developed by Gallup, the research firm,
mm,
and it's called Clifton Strengths. And when I took this test, myself for the first time many years ago. It's like my strengths were communication or strategic communication, command, and woo. And I went, what do you mean command? Hold on. I'm like, oh, okay. So some people just naturally have a tendency to just be like, hey, and I say this. What do you think? So I had to learn to like make that a little bit more elegant in terms of delivery, and sometimes I slip up still, but it wasn't any one thing. You know me, Jordan. I mean, I'm gonna just say it like it is.
Well, I definitely think, Jay, you have that command attribute as well. Jay, you as an entrepreneur of King Operating, I think that this would be an interesting discussion between you and Brandy is to look at when King Operating was building itself as a brand and finding its niche and finding the investors and doing things like that. Like, how did you go about that? Did you use an outside service like what Brandy has to offer, or did you guys try and figure that out on your own? Like, how did King Operating go about that? And then Brandy, how do you start those conversations with people who may have been in that beginning position or are looking to rebrand? So Jay, I'll have you go first, and then Brandy, I'd love to have your input on that.
Okay, yeah, tell me.
Yeah, well, in '95, we started our first company, and then '96 we started King Operating, and we had a guy that came in and he charged us a little bit of money to kind of come up with a logo, and I think that's the first step, I guess, is getting a logo, or you get a name incorporated, blah blah blah. Then you get a logo, and then after that, there wasn't any really big, who's got milk or the swoosh or whatever. It was just just kind of a hey, we're going to put ourselves out there, and we didn't. It's not as obvious, or it's not as there's no social media back then, so it wasn't like we had, the exposure that you have today. Today, it's so important to put yourself out there, and I don't say don't screw it up, but just do it right. Put a lot of time into it, and then when you have the who's got milk or whatever, then you put it out there, and then you're gonna just literally blow up like our last guest, Brad Hunstable, and some of the things that he's done is just blown up because he's done everything in his homework before. He's, hired somebody like Brandy to come in and help you with you're not say your self-image, but it's not your self-image more than it's your branding, or what do you want to portray your business? How do you want to portray King Operating or the Jay Young Show or other companies? How do you want to portray them, and how do you want to box them up? Because she's the expert in thinking through what's the best way for us to get the most exposure. We didn't have that. I mean, we shoestringed it, from the very beginning, 30 years ago. But it wasn't like we had, the exposure you have today. But somebody like Brandy's really needed. What are some of the smaller companies that you've helped out lately, Brandy? Or what's the kind of do you look at smaller companies, or is it just The
Both.
Texacos of the world, or
So sort of the sweet spot for us is we like to work with companies that are disruptive, that value innovation, and that understand the importance of culture, and that sometimes have a tricky message, a tricky story to tell. And that can be a large enterprise, multi-billion-dollar company, or it can be a small kind of one man shop or somebody in their B round or C round. It really, in my mind, the big deal is we as a company, as a brand strategy company, can deliver the most value when there's a, a disruption, there's kind of this foresight that you're going to make the world a better place. You're playing in the industrial space, you're most likely playing in energy, and you believe in the importance of culture to shape your brand. That's kind of where we're going, like we click the best. And there are a ton of other incredible brand strategy companies that look at other companies as well. What I would say in terms of the journey that you went on, it's if you are, and you all are, a highly successful company, what a company like Gallant would or should do is not rebrand you. It would be having a conversation and really figuring out the pillars that have contributed to your success, and then framing them in a way that is most relevant to your current and future reality, like what you want to accomplish. So what we would do is have a lot of conversations with you and any of your other founders, probably your clients and so forth, and really look for those threads of commonality, those things that you keep coming back to, going, this really made a difference. And some of it's in the narratives of your story, some of it's maybe in some of the traditions that that have fueled you in kind of the darker times, and you've gotten to celebrate in better times. But I assure you, you have a brand, and you have a mission, and you have a vision. What we do is listen and then try to put words to those. And those words are a set of tools that you can then put in other people's hands so that they can represent you as ambassadors of your brand.
So I have a question here. And Jay and I have talked a lot about AI and the chat GPT and all those things, and how it's, entering into the energy industry, but it's also bulldozing its way through the marketing industry. And people are like, "Oh, well, I can just use chat GPT for this, or I can just use Gemini for that." And what are your thoughts about AI being integrated as almost like I would dare I say that some companies are using it as a marketing crutch instead of actually partnering with people like your agency, or hiring team members. Like Jay has Laura, and Laura does such a fantastic job, like helping out with the blogs and the marketing messages and stuff like that. But when people are using AI as almost like that, "Oh, well, I can just use this." What are your thoughts on that AI integration for businesses, and how do you see that the opportunity cost of utilizing that kind of resource?
So, first of all, I am a big fan of AI. I love it. I think it's magnificent. I think it was invented for me. I can't that I get to experience the opportunity to like have all of these thoughts and ideas that have been racing into my mind, just get that further into reality through the use of these tools. So I'm very, very excited about them. Um, what if on the client side of things, any good communications professional is going to sit on their hands sometimes when they're working with their clients, because there's only so much they can do. Maybe the client has a particular budget, and you're like, "Gosh, if I could just do this, if I could just do that." And well, we don't have time, we don't have the, now I can. So
Yeah.
that's great. But the what a professional that's trained in whatever it is, I don't care if it's marketing or CAD design. I don't care what it is. Somebody that has, like, had the glory and the opportunity to run through the human brain filter,
Right.
can make these tools sing.
Mm.
And so
I
if
think it's the context. It's the context. It's
okay,
the
so
experience. Like,
yes, is somebody that has never done this, I'm going to be able to massage their prompts and know what
right.
it looks like. Uh, they can get there. I mean, what I do is not brain surgery. I mean, I think I'm better at it than most folks because I'm very, very passionate about it, and
Mm.
passionate about the way that it can shape change. Um, but I can deliver something in the realm of brand strategy that maybe leverages certain AI tools that is going to be effective. The other thing that I think people need to realize is you can design a beautiful prompt, you listen, you have these very real contextualized conversations, you understand the market, you've done the research, and you have certain ways of, kind of um, like priming the pump when it comes to all of these tools, right? Um, but you still have to do the work, Jordan. I
Yeah.
mean, eh, some if you are saying, "Oh, I'm doing something that usually takes me 2 days and I did it in 20 minutes," you're not there. You're not
Yeah.
there. I had a client, um, and I was kind of like trying to get to know them and looked back on some of their things. And the first few uh, paragraphs in a blog that they put forward were great. And then you read and read and read and read. And then somewhere midway through, the chat GPT or whatever they use switched things up and they started talking about oil painting, but not in like a really cool, like symbolic way. No, no, they were literally talking about pulling hydrocarbon out of the ground and shifted to oil painting. I mean, you have to, I am not joking. And the point is you have to edit, you still have to do the
Right.
work. I think a good number is if it normally would take you 20 hours and you're able to do it in 4, that's great. That's fantastic. But if it normally takes you 20 hours and you're doing it in 20 minutes, you need to go back. Go back.
All right.
So,
Hey, let's talk about. And I think when I think about brand strategy and I think about marketing, I mean, I got my degree in marketing, or I got a degree in marketing. So I this is not one of those products that you put on the shelf and sell. It's like you're not necessarily, you know, you're building widgets over here, you're putting them on the shelf, and then your marketing sales strategy. This is something a little different because you're talking about an image, or you're talking about, your brand, and it's like that's what my wife and I work together, Michelle, and
mhm.
we talk about, yeah, well, we need to advertise on this, and she goes, well, how does that work, and what's going to happen, what's our return on our dollars, and I go, well, it's just kind of one of those things that we want to put our name out there, instead of just buy a list of leads and then you buy the list and you see how well, it's different. Brand strategy is different. Brand imaging is different. What are the thoughts? Is it like a year, 2 years, or if I said, hey, Brandy, let's go, let's come up with a "you got milk" for me, or eat more chicken. Isn't that great though? Chick-fil-A, eat more chicken. Isn't that just obvious? I mean, as for anyway, never mind. But
Is it
it is.
that
But
is
I'm just,
so
how long
brilliant,
would it
right?
take, or what be the process in thinking about the Brandy and the Jay Young Show, or
Okay.
whatever?
So
Brandy, before you get started there, Jay, you really hit on two main things that I think a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with. And Brandy, you're going to be so key in answering these questions. But the number one thing is, how do I quantify the marketing spend?
mhm.
That is one of the main things. And then the second thing that Jay's asking is, what is that process of building the brand's foundation to help better tell that story? So the really two main questions there, and if you can shed some light on both, or really that first one, and that would be really helpful.
Okay. So, in terms of the return on investment that you can expect in terms of brand effort. That is not an easy thing to quantify, and it's across so many variables. I wish I could say, well, you could, but what I can tell you is that well-branded companies command more goodwill and command a higher value in the marketplace. So we know that. We know that to be true. You can experience that every time you go to the supermarket. You can experience that every time you walk on the trade show floor at NAPE or at OTC or any of those things. Well-branded companies push people further along in the sales cycle with ease. Well-branded companies enable the attraction of a more high caliber workforce at I'm not going to say at a reduced rate because that's not necessarily accurate, but let's just say that if a well-branded company has a platform that resonates with a particular candidate, then they're more likely to join that company. So across the board, there are a lot of KPIs that you can look at. Your voice of the customer, your those net promoter scores. I could go on and on and on. Your attrition rates. I mean, it touches every aspect of the company. And so what I think is important is to make sure that your branding efforts do in fact align to your business goals and go from there. So whenever the methodology that we leverage to develop a brand platform, we've done it very, very quickly. But
Yeah, how long does it take? Because when you're working with a smaller business, I've helped some friends build brand guidelines and things like that and had conversations, but on a small scale, that was like, 5 hours worth of, conversations. And then, okay, we have 2 reviews of what that looks like and then put that out there. But for, that's like on a sole proprietor scale, right? So when you're looking at somebody like Jay's business, right, with King Operating, like
right.
how long does that take to then say, okay, this is now in process. We have our story brand.
So whenever we're talking about brand in general, we're talking about everything from how the outward focus of your company aligns to what you're up to in terms of business. We're talking about what your leading edge is in terms of what you can do differently. We're talking about your cultural alignment across your various stakeholders. And then finally, we get to the fun part, which is your naming, your logos. I skipped something. If you have multiple brands, then we're also talking. So once we do like why you exist as a business, you're an attainable yet extremely aspirational view of the future, which is what we call your vision, your brand pillars. After that, if you have a lot of different offerings, we're going to develop a brand architecture that makes sure that we're going to market according to what your customers buy, not according to what you sell. I see this a lot in industrial companies. They're like, well, I have 5 different companies and this is an LLC and this is a shell and blah, 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 blah. And we have to talk about them this way. No, that's your legal entities. That's not a thing. We're talking about your outward facing. We want to make it as easy as possible for the people that can receive value from your company to do it. And so brand architecture is what that is. People have naming conventions and products and all of that. And then we get to do the fun part, which is picking the colors, picking picking the message.
That's the part I like.
Yeah, of course. That's the part I like too. And that's typically what entrepreneurs do first because it's the fun part. And I don't discourage them from doing it. And because inspiration and moving towards creating something real, in my purview, is sometimes more propellant than going through a rigorous process. So if somebody tells me something like, I picked the shade of yellow because this shade of yellow is my favorite dog's collar. Okay, fine. There might be 1,000 reasons why, in terms of color theory, which I'm all about, and Casey, our art director, can talk about for days, and I would love to be prescriptive about it, but that's not the context. The context is this person picked this color because they love their dog and they want to think about that whenever they're excited about sharing their company. Fantastic. That's going to be more powerful. So we can work in the confines of that, even if it's not that pretty. But most entrepreneurs get excited and they want to name the company first, and naming makes things more real. Most of the time, though, even unless it's a really unless the name is an asset, or sorry, unless the name is a liability where a name should truly be an asset, unless it's a true liability, what we will do is work with a company to imbue the name with a meaning and make it, turn it into something, retroactively justify the name, all of that sort of stuff.
What have you seen in regards to, it's a great product. They have great people, but their branding sucked, for lack of a better term, I guess. And it just failed, or didn't. Is there anything in particular that you can think of that you tried to help them, they wouldn't accept your advice, or they went a different direction, and they kind of flopped?
Okay, so
does that happen?
All of my brand strategy people are going to jump on me when I say this. If you've got a great company that is delivering amazing products, you've got people that are truly vested, that and they do what they say they're going to do. First of all, you have a great brand, but maybe it's not aesthetically pleasing or memorable or whatever, but that interaction with your people is going to be memorable. So even if you do not do anything, even if you do not do anything to invest in the management of your brand, you will not fail. But just think how much better it could be with brand.
I was about to say, you better watch out. Your brand strategists are going to be calling
you. But if somebody's going to say you're going to fail if you don't get a new, it's simply not true. Now, but what I can tell you, and I saw this, I mean, this is what really kind of led me to my work, is we had all this stuff. We had Paul Newman, a world of energy. I wish I could do a Paul Newman voice. That would be so weird. Can you imagine if I just popped off with a Paul Newman voice? But they spent the money, they did the deal, right? They did everything right, except number one, they didn't make it mean something to the people that were executing. And number two, they did it in a vacuum. So whenever we do this kind of work, we go, okay, you are already pretty successful, or maybe you're not as successful, but there are elements of success. There are beacons of success within your organization. How do we amplify those things? So I would want to talk to the stakeholders, which, guess what? That may mean that it's somebody in your factory or in your your research team that has never been asked this question before. Why do you care? What do you think? They're just like, I come in, I do my job, I like my people, I know my work matters. Okay, but what do you think about, and the thing that I think is so incredible, it's incredible across the board in the industrial space, how creative people are that have never owned that moniker. And it blows me away and delights me so much, specifically in the oil and gas space, because a guy or girl who is, again, designing a new molecule or designing a new heat transfer pump, whatever it is, they know deep down that they're creative and that they're highly innovative, but they'll say, oh, I'm just a nerd, or no, you are not just anything. You're changing the world here. So that to me is, if somebody said, what are one of the things that you love the most about your job? It's being able to empower people to claim that.
Yeah, it seems like you look for the through line in the culture of the company, and then help bring that culture into words that then resonate across the board, so that you can bring people in to understand the product and the company that creates it, and then that that statement or positioning, rather, the positioning resonates with the internal team, which then makes because what you want is you want your evangelists, right? If somebody's really excited about the brand internally, externally, then they're going to talk about it, and then more of those conversations are going to happen. So we're nearing the end of our time here, but really quickly, you also founded TexSpace. Let's talk really quickly about that, and then after that, I have one more question. So, Jay, I don't know if you have any other questions, but I definitely want to hear more about TexSpace because you are a founding board member. It's a nonprofit bridging civil, commercial, and military space sectors. It's huge here in Houston, obviously, with the space industry. I'm sure you were very excited to see Elon Musk's chopsticks
Absolutely.
work very
It was
well.
incredible. It was incredible. Yes.
So what made you want to start it, and how's it going?
So basically, this is another example of how we take the vision of a visionary. In this particular case, it was a gentleman by the name of Jack Two Fish Fisher, and then we put the muscle behind it to execute. So essentially, Two Fish lived on the ISS space, or on the ISS, the International Space Station, for over 100 days. I think it was 130 days. I met him through a very serendipitously because I didn't want to be in isolation during COVID. So I reached out to everybody I knew that was fun in my past, and a friend of mine from college. Anyway, it's a long story, but long story short, he wanted to start this nonprofit. He wanted to call it Haya. I said, well, let's maybe consider something else. I love your mission, and I will develop the brand piece of it. And that was one piece of it. So we developed all of that out. And then there was a gentleman who basically runs our company, who has very deep expertise in sustainability and space, and then also execution and operation strategy. And so I did the preliminary branding and then handed it off to my partner, James Adams, and then he just like expanded it out beyond anything that we could ever imagine, and was very instrumental in ensuring that Texas had a Texas Space Commission. And then in terms of kind of where we're at today, you know, the thing about TexSpace is it's very mission driven. So at that time, the mission was helping stand up the Space Commission. I don't know what our mission is at this moment, because right now we're focused on a very different industry, and that industry is geothermal. And so right now we're working with a lot of folks in that space to understand it, and it's just been fantastic. So
Any plans to look into nuclear or no? I know that that's a hot.
So I think nuclear is fascinating too. We're always, we always want to make sure that any technologies that can leverage communications to shape the world are things that we're on top of. If I had a magic wand and could pick, I would pick geothermal over nuclear. But the fact of the matter is, we need hydrocarbon, we need nuclear, we need geothermal, we need all of these baseload power supplies, and then we need intermittent, and then we need everybody to get on board with battery. Like, we need all of these things.
That's so interesting. We just had a host, Jay, you remember? We just had a host on who was talking about needing that diversified portfolio of energy to be more sustained in our energy consumption.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's a whole other conversation. I can get on a soapbox about it, but the thing that I want to just to kind of leave you all with is that we've got AI, which we know is a big energy drain, but we also know that a lot of the tools that AI uses can manage predictability and modeling and all these sorts of things to level the grid. So it's one of these chicken and egg things. So AI requires more energy, but also AI could potentially put more energy on the grid. So that's kind of the space that I'm watching right now, going, ooh, how can I help with that?
You should look into Corva. Corva does a great job of analyzing they have a partnership, I believe, with Baker Hughes now, but they help create apps for energy industry folks, and well, one, I love the branding, so you might enjoy it, but
Yes, I would love to
yeah,
look at it. Yes.
yeah. So I have one more question. Jay, do you have any other questions?
No, I'm good. I'll let you, and then I'll finish it up. But go ahead.
Yeah. So, Brandy, you've had quite the career, bulldozing your way into boardrooms, having conversations, and doing the like, and then also starting your own business, being a founding member of TexSpace. You've done so many different things. You've been in different industries. You've found your niche. What advice would you give to your 18-year-old self?
Um, I think don't take things so personally. Uh,
Mm,
be whole and complete in terms of the value that you can bring to the table, but be very, very open, and know that you don't know what you don't know, and be relentless in your curiosity and resourcefulness. Be absolutely relentless in like trying to learn and be resourceful. I think that to me is absolutely so important. And it's something that I don't care if you're Gen X like me or Gen, like I don't care. Like be resourceful, turn those rocks over, be curious. We live in such an exciting time. I mean, I remember I had I had these like old dusty encyclopedias in my hall, big, and I just would pour through them, and then all of a sudden, oh my gosh, I'm 20 years old, 18 years old. I remember the first thing I ever Googled, but it wasn't Google, it was Yahoo, and I typed in "tell me about Bjork." So like and I remember my cubicle at Texaco, this guy came up, he's like, yeah, we have the internet here and you can ask it any questions and you're going to get answers. And I was so grateful in that moment to know all of a sudden that I have all these amazing outlets for my curiosity, and it's only gotten better from there. And we're fortunate, if you're in the oil and gas industry or the energy industry, you're fortunate to be part of an industry that is a teaching industry. People share, people are generous with their knowledge. So ask questions, do your background homework, ask intelligent, thoughtful questions, and listen. So that's it's not one thing. I wish it were one thing, but
Well, I
that's
think
yeah,
the
like
most
curious.
important, Brandy, I think the most important thing you said there was be curious, because I think that's a great tagline because people, if they're curious, they want to find out. And if it doesn't work, they move on, they move to different, I mean, and I'm just really glad that you came on the show today because, man, I mean, to build a brand, I mean, it's everybody's building a brand, whether or not you are or not, right? We're not building a brand with
absolutely
Jay Young Show.
100%.
I need to have a celebrity. I need a celebrity to come up on and look at the Jay Young Show and just have a. I mean, there's all these different ways to do this.
You have Jordan, she's a celebrity.
I know, I know, which is awesome. But and I'm not gonna say but. That's a bad way to. And but like Louis Vuitton or like a celebrity or like all these other brands, the swoosh with Nike. I mean, there's all those different things, and building a brand is just so important. I mean, of course, you have to deliver, with great product and great people, but you've got to get yourself out there, whether or not you're in Wall Street Journal, Forbes, TED Talks. I've always heard people say, Jay, you need to do a TED Talk, and I'm like, okay, I don't know what that means, but I've heard of it, and I've watched several, but that's building a brand, and that's how you can help people build a brand, which is just fascinating. And yes, it's not, like Jordan said, quantifiable at this particular second, but it's something that if you want to put yourself out there, I mean, just think about it. I mean, all the different brands that you see and you see over and over and over again, and if you're walking into a store and you see that they have, well, like the Lululemon, is that how you say that? Yeah, it's like, man, what a great brand, that thing. I walked in there the other day.
My teacher, one of my teachers, was the head of culture for Lululemon.
What?
Oh, really?
Yes. Shout out to Suzanne Conrad. She is an absolutely brilliant culture teacher and personal growth teacher. She's one of the best probably on this planet right now. But yes, So
I'm LinkedIn searching her. It's happening right
Suzanne
after this.
Conrad, Light Your Leadership. I did a very intense practicum with her for over a year, and this woman is incredible. Incredible. Yes.
Love that.
That's awesome.
Well, thank you so much for
Brandy,
being
where
on
do
the
we
show,
find
Brandy.
you?
It's been a delightful conversation. We've explored so many different avenues of what branding is, what it looks like, what it means. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Absolutely.
thank
Brandy,
you
how do we
all.
find you, or if we can spell your last name? I guarantee there's not many people that go by that line. Obvinteseva.
Okay. Obvintseva. And you can just Google Brandy and Gallant or Brandy and just Brandy Obvintseva or Brandy Brazil. There are a lot of ways to find me. I'm easy to find. I'm Brandy with a Y at gallantculture.com. LinkedIn with me. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm all over the place.
Oh, that's
So-
awesome.
We message a lot. She's very active on LinkedIn.
I'm very active on LinkedIn, and you can also, it's pretty easy to find my phone number. I'm really good at text, or WhatsApp, anyway. So
That's awesome. Well, Brandy, thanks for being on the show today. We really enjoyed having
I
you.
had so much fun.
Absolutely. And I look forward to staying in touch and helping us with the Jay Young Show, or maybe the King Operating or something. And people reach out to her if you need help with the branding, if you have questions or just questions, and you don't want to, it doesn't cost you a dime to just call her up and ask. And also, be curious, is what she said. She said, be curious.
Curious. Yes.
Let's go with that. Everybody, thank you so much for being here today. Brandy, thanks again. Jordan, you're splendid as always. And
Oh, so are you, Jay.
thank you. I appreciate that. Everybody have a great day.